Shalom, family. I just wanted to share a few thoughts about the upcoming feast day and about the feast days and appointed times in general. So we are coming up now. We're approaching Feast of Trumpets, the day of shouting, Yom Teruah. That's what we're coming up on pretty soon. We're coming up on the 7th month of the Hebrew biblical calendar. So we're in a space where we're in the last feast day that we observed was Shavuot, which was the last of the spring feast. The spring feast, we have Passover or Pesach. We have the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We have first fruits, and then we have Shavuot. So we know that in the spring feast, it is dealing with all of the feast days are dealing with Yah's plan of salvation, his plan of deliverance. Yah's feast days go back to creation. In Genesis chapter 1, the Most High, when he was forming the earth, when he was creating the sun and the moon, he talks about the fact that he's put it there to determine days and years and to determine appointed times, his Moedim. So these appointed times, these times where the Most High calls us together, where he meets with us, he had this in mind at the beginning of creation, before man was even created. When he created the actual elements of the earth, the sun, the moon, these permanent elements that we have here, he had in mind the part of their use to be to determine these set apart appointments that we would meet with him. And engraved in those times is his plan of salvation. We say that it points to the son Yahusha. It points to the Messiah, Yahusha. Yahusha's name means Yah is salvation, or Yah salvation, the salvation of Yah. That's what his name means, because that's what his purpose is. That's what he is fulfilling. He's fulfilling the plan of salvation, fulfilling the final elements of the plan of salvation. So when we look at the feast days, it's pointing to, we see Yahusha in it, in his fulfillment, because it's pointing to Yah's plan of salvation. So Yah had the ending already in place from the beginning, from the very beginning. Before man was even here to fall, there were already the elements that were going to serve the purpose of setting apart these times and signifying these times that he would use to give us a message of his coming plan to deliver us and to bring us back to himself. So Yah's feast days, his appointed times, are very important because, first of all, they come from the foundation, they come from the heart of Yah, they belong to him, they have purpose, and they show the whole culmination of Yah's plan. This whole time that we're on earth, it's like, if you put it, it's his calendar of everything that's going on. So if we don't take the time to observe and understand those things, then we're missing a lot of the big picture. We're missing a lot of the picture. So it's very important that if you have not come yet to understand what they mean, that you begin to seek out understanding on the feast days and the significance of them. So they go back to creation, and they're talking about Yah's plan of salvation. They also are connected to the land. So they are connected to agriculture. So in a lot of the fulfillments, it would deal with the harvest. It would deal with times of harvest, and it would have parts of the fulfillment when the children of Yisrael kept the feast days. It was a lot of the things that they were commanded to do had to do with the land and agriculture and the harvest and the seasons of it. And the Most High was giving a message through that as to what he was pointing to, this future greater fulfillment of it. So the children of Yisrael, they kept the feast days during the times that they were obedient, which wasn't long, but they kept, we see where they kept the first Passover coming out of Egypt, and in that the Most High was giving them a physical deliverance. It was a physical deliverance that he was, when he brought them out of Egypt. He was in response to the covenant that he already had with Abraham. He was fulfilling that covenant by physically delivering them out of that land. And as he was doing that, he was making another covenant with them specifically as the children of Yisrael, to come into a spiritual deliverance where he would walk with them and bring them out spiritually, where he would bind them together, bind their hearts, make their hearts one with him, and reconnect to him. So he said, let my people go so that they can worship me in the wilderness. So when they left Egypt, there was a physical deliverance, his physical plan of salvation for them, to bring them out, to bring them into the promised land. And in that wilderness, as they accepted the covenant and entered into the covenant, the Most High was bringing them spiritually out of the place where they were disconnected from him. So he was bringing them into the bond, bringing them into the family, making them a nation, making them his household of people, bringing them into his house. So he first did the physical deliverance, and then he brought about the spiritual deliverance. Okay. So when he walked them through that, through in their keeping of the Passover and in the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the first fruits, and down to Shavuot when he gave them the commands. And so he walked them through that physical aspect of the physical deliverance, as he was working in them a spiritual deliverance and restoration, of which most of them did not receive. Most of them rejected that aspect of it and did not walk into the promise. They did not walk into the Most High allowed them to die out. And a lot of them who even entered in still were not regenerated. They were not renewed in their mind, in their spirit, in their heart. So for them, it was first the physical deliverance, and then as he worked out that spiritual deliverance for them. So we know that the spring feast, those feast days there, was a foreshadowing of what was going to come in the future when Yahusha came. It pointed forward to Yahusha fulfilling the Passover, fulfilling the Feast of Unleavened Bread, fulfilling being the first fruits. You know, the Passover, he became the Passover lamb. He became with their blood is the point of redemption. His body was the bread that was unleavened, that was without sin. His life, he presented himself to the Most High as the first fruits of all of us. He's the firstborn of our nation, to be born as the new creation that's going to enter into the kingdom of Yah. So he presented himself as the first fruits, and at Shavuot he went to the Father and released the Ruach, the Spirit of the Most High, for us to be able to pour out on us so that we can continue this work in between the seasons of, that was his first coming. So then it's going to be his second coming, which we are looking forward to. So as far as that portion, the spring feast, we look back on what has been fulfilled in that. And so now we're looking forward to the fall feast being fulfilled in Yahusha in this time period. So there's a parallel. So in between the spring feast and the fall feast, and also in between the first coming of Yahusha and the second coming of Yahusha, is a time of preparation. When the Spirit was poured out, the last feast day was Shavuot, when the Spirit was poured out for those who are in Yahusha to go and to make disciples, to go and to redeem our people, to go and to regather our people, to go and to bring the message of the kingdom out to our people. So this is the work that was done, that has been done since Yahusha came the first time, and up until now. This is the work that we've been left to do as a people who are scattered, as a people who are in various places of captivity, as a people who need a deliverance. So what the Most High is doing now is kind of the flip of partially a flip of what he did with the children of Israel. When he did with them, he brought them out physically and then worked out their spiritual deliverance. But for us now, in this time period in between these two seasons of his first coming and second coming, he's working out a spiritual deliverance in us. So Yahusha came, they thought that he was going to bring about the physical deliverance during the time that he came. But what he was doing was working out the spiritual deliverance, working out that spiritual deliverance for us so that we can enter into the next physical deliverance, which is also going to be a physical and a spiritual thing. But he's working out in this time period the spiritual deliverance of, the spiritual deliverance of our people. So he's working in us. He's making that word that was on the tablets, he's engraving it in our hearts. He's engraving it in our hearts so that we will be prepared to be able to be worthy of the physical deliverance again out of captivity, because he's again going to bring us out of the land of captivity. He's again going to gather us and bring us out. But this time when he brings us out, we have to be prepared for that time of coming. We have to be surrendered and prepared and being made ready. So this is the season of time that we're in, is the being made ready for when he comes the second time to give us that physical deliverance, to bring us out of this bondage, out of this captivity and into the kingdom. We'll be ready. Excuse me, y'all. So we're in that season now. So he's coming up to we're coming up to Yom Teruah. So we know that Yom Teruah has to do with Day of Shouting. It has to do with trumpets being sounded. And we know that in the scripture where it talks about as far as end times, the trumpet sounding, it has to do with the Yahusha coming back. It has to do with the king. The trumpet is sounded when the king is getting ready to be put in position. And the people in our land, the shofar or the trumpet was a sound of warning. It was a sound of alarm. It was something that gets your attention. It's something that signifies a gathering. So during the feast days, the trumpet will be sounded, the shofar will be sounded. And it was something that talked about gathering. It was for the people to gather. It's not something that when you're making a loud noise, it's not just it's for to get attention. Okay, so this is the time period that's we're leading back up to now, where prophetically in the grand scheme of things, Yahusha is going to make his second re-entrance, okay, to regather the people, to physically deliver us, those who have been walking through the spiritual deliverance and allowing the Most High to work that in us. He's going to now bring us into this physical deliverance out of this, out of Egypt again, out of Babylon. So we've seen this year in 2020 that the Most High almost brought things back to the beginning, because during the spring feast of 2020, the Most High almost had another. If your eyes could see and your ears could hear, there was a physical, almost replay of the first Passover, of go in the house, put the blood over your doorpost, and the Most High was speaking prophetically and bringing us back to the consciousness of the beginning for our people, to remind us of where we are now, that we were in Egypt and we're in Egypt now, to be recognizing that. Okay, so he did a replay of that throughout the spring feast of this year, to bring us back to the beginning, to give us back that understanding, to know that he is coming back again, like he said that he would come back and deliver us out of our bondage and our captivity, when he said that he would come again. So we those who have ears to hear and eyes to see, that's why it's important to understand and study his feast days, and to be able to see the unfolding of his plan of salvation. Know that he is working this out for us now, that he's coming back, that we're coming to the end of this time period of captivity, and he again is hearing our cries, as he did with the children of Israel. He's hearing our cries, and he's preparing to respond. So we're looking forward to the second coming of Yahusha. So in this time period, are we being prepared? Are we preparing ourselves? Are we being like the wise virgins who've kept their lamps filled with oil? Or are we going to be found caught off guard when we hear that the blowing of that trumpet, when we hear the sound, when we hear that shout, when we hear that? Are we going to be caught off guard by it, or are we expecting it? because there's a different attitude when you're expecting something versus when something catches you off guard. When something, if you ever had something major happen that you weren't expecting, you have a different response than when you were expecting it. So if there's a major hurricane or a major natural disaster, and it just happened, like say an earthquake or something, and you weren't expecting an earthquake, and the ground begins to shake, you're confused, you don't know what's going on, what's happening, you know, and you weren't at that moment in a place to be prepared to handle what was going on. But if you knew that was going on, say that there's a tornado watch and you've been told to go get into a safe place and you've been told what to do, then even though you're waiting for the moment when it actually happens, you're also you're prepared in the mindset, and you've positioned yourself to be able to deal with it as it comes. So Yahusha said that no man will know the day or the hour specifically of his coming, but that we should not be ignorant of the season. So if we are paying attention to the word, if we're staying in line with prophecy, that's why it's important for us to know who the people are. It's not about a race thing. It's not about skin color. It's about understanding prophecy. Prophecy is scriptural history. You know, understanding the past and how it points to the future, and being able to see that future that it was pointing to unfolding before us, being able to perceive it as it's happening. So if you don't understand who the people are and what Yah said about the people and what to look for, and if you don't believe in Yahusha, you're going to be confused. You're not going to be in line and in sync with what's actually happening. You'll be doing the wrong things, thinking the wrong things. So it's imminent that we gain understanding in this season. So will you be prepared at the second coming? Will you be prepared when you hear the trumpet sound? So this is why we go through these feast days, so that it gives us a chance, an opportunity every year to get back into position, back into a place of, wait a minute, this time period is winding down. When the shofar sounds, when the blast comes, when the sound of shouting comes, is it going to be something that incites fear, or is it going to be something that I've been waiting for and preparing for? You know, when we hear this sound, he doesn't want us to be caught off guard. So we have to know the season that we're in. We have to keep our lamps filled with oil. We have to make sure that our lamps are filled with oil, so that we are not caught off guard in preparing. So right now, many are doing physical preparation. You know, many are talking about the second wave and different things that are coming. Many are preparing physically, as we should. And many are, you know, perceiving those things that are happening in the natural realm. But also, are we perceiving the spiritual season that we're in, and are we preparing our hearts and our minds? So Feast of Trumpets, the Yom Teruah, the Day of Shouting, is coming up. So we have the opportunity to be in a place where we are prepared for it, so that when we hear that sound, we're in a place of celebration. We're in a place of anticipation. We're in a place of, we've been in a place of making ourselves ready, because that feast day is leading up to the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, which is where we will be atoned for. So we have to be in a place of, have been in a place of repentance and seeking Yah, in a place of humility, as we prepare for Yah to atone for us and cover us, so that the next feast is Sukkot, so that we'll be prepared to Sukkot, to tabernacle, to dwell with him. So there's a preparation that's taking place, and if you're not in sync with these times and these seasons, then you're not going to be in sync with how he's unfolding his plan of salvation to deliver us. And you'll be in the wrong place, doing the wrong thing, thinking the wrong thing, seeing the wrong way. So it's important to be able to know and perceive where we are in time and history, where we are prophetically and as a people, and then for our own individual selves, allowing our ruach, our spirit, to be prepared. So the Most High wants to remove any hindrances from us that will keep us from perceiving the sound of that shofar when it blows, keeping us from being prepared to be atoned for, keeping us out of the place of being able to sukkot with him, tabernacle with him. We don't want to be caught in the wilderness as our ancestors were and not enter into the promised land, enter into the promise. This is what we've been waiting for, is to be gathered back to him. So this is the time of the fall harvest, the ingathering. This is the time that we have to be prepared for. So as we await this time between the second coming and the first coming, we have to be doing the work that he left us to do. Teaching and preaching the kingdom of Yahusha, the kingdom of Yah. We have to be teaching and making disciples. We have to be repenting ourselves and constantly cleansing ourselves, coming out of Babylon. The Most High is allowing Babylon to fall and he's allowing it to be a slow fall, so that as mercy on his people, so that to the degree that we've been leaning on Babylon, we can, when you see something falling that you have been using as a security, no matter to what degree that it's been your security, you'll have enough sense to see it falling and to remove yourself from it. If you see your house collapsing, you're going to run out of it, even though this is your dwelling place, even though this is your home, even though this is, your place of security. If you see it crumbling down, if you have sense, you're going to move away from it. So he's giving us the opportunity to see it falling, if you didn't already perceive that it was falling, so that you can begin to remove yourself from it. So to whatever degree that your heart is still connected, not being like Lot's wife, looking back when Sodom and Gomorrah is being destroyed, but not being like the children of Israel and still whining and wanting the food from Egypt, but fleeing Babylon. Come out from among them and be separate. Come out of Babylon and be separate. Remove any residue that's left within us that's connected to this system, so that you don't be one who is marked with the mark of this system, so that you don't be one who is carrying the mark of this beast system. Many of us are concerned, many people are concerned about how this mark is going to come, but it doesn't matter how it comes, in what form it comes. If your spirit is attached to the system, then you're gonna find yourself under that mark, because you're not going to be able to resist something that you are intimately attached to. But if you are marked with the mark of the Most High, you are intimately attached to the Most High. His word is engraved in you, and by his spirit, so that you are walking in spirit and in truth. That you have no allegiance to this system. You have no allegiance to everything that's contrary to him, and you are looking forward to another kingdom. You're looking forward to the advancement of the kingdom of the Most High. So you want to be marked with his word, his spirit within you. That mark, you want that to be on your forehead and on your hand, in your works and in your mind, in your meditation and in your actions. You want to be in that place of worshiping him in his wilderness, so that there's no place for the beast to mark you, because it's not in your spirit. So we want to be vigilant and be sober-minded in this season, so that we're hearing the Most High, and we're hearing how to be connected, who to be connected to, who to not be connected to, what do we need to come out from, how do we need to prepare, and how do we prepare our spirits. This is the season where he's already poured out his Ruach, and he's looking for what are we doing with what he has given us. Many of us have various limitations. Some of us have limitations with our finances. Some of us have limitations with our location where we are, or the relationships that we may or may not have. Some of us have limitations with our bodies, our health, our energy. We have various limitations. We maybe have limitations with our time, but despite the limitations, Yah is calling us to be a faithful steward over what we do have within whatever realm of our limitation, whatever our limitations are, whatever level of talent he's given us, whether it be 1, 5, or 10. If we only have that one, what are we doing with it? Are we doing what he's given us to do with it? When Yahusha talked to the in Revelation, we talked to the various churches, the various assemblies, he spoke on where they were versus where they needed to be. And he would say, I see your works, but you have this one thing lacking. You have this one thing missing. If you don't want your candlelight to be removed, then, you know, return to this area. Return to your first love. Return to these works. You know, cease these other works that are not of me, that are not producing fruit and light. So we have to evaluate ourselves. And this is the season of evaluating ourselves, where we are, repenting and being made right in the eyes of the Most High. You know, dealing with our offenses to him, dealing with our offenses to each other, and being in a place of humility so that he can do the work in us and through us. This is the season of whatever assignment that he's giving you, knowing what it is and fulfilling that, whatever it is. Just asking, how can I fulfill that with whatever limitations I'm working with? So we need each other, to encourage each other, to uplift each other, to unify in spirit and in truth, as he's gathering us together. He's gathering us from the four winds. So we want to be prepared for that, and being found with our lamps full of oil, and whatever that takes as he's coming. So Yom Teruah is coming up very soon. We'll be coming up on the 7th month, and looking to see what Yah's going to do in the earth during this week. He did so much during the spring feast this year in 2020. So we're looking to see what's going to happen and how he's going to reveal himself for the 2020 fall feast days, appointed times, and just continue to stay in position. So be encouraged and be vigilant, be sober-minded and serious about the season that we're in, and be encouraged. Be encouraged that he's giving you a spirit to see and to know and to hear, even if the answers aren't all the way there. As long as you are attentive, you'll be able to hear the sound. If you're paying attention, you'll hear when there's a sound. If there's a lot of noise, you may not notice the sound. But if you're attentive, your ears are attentive, you'll hear the sound. You'll hear his sound, because he's the one that's going to send the sound. And when you hear it, you'll be able to respond to it. Hallelujah. So I just wanted to share that as we're coming up to the feast days. And Yah willing, I'll be sharing some things leading up to Yom Teruah, and between Yom Teruah and Atonement, and throughout the feast days, if it be Yah's will. So I pray that you have a blessed season, blessed fall feast season, and shalom.